This podcast was inspired by an internship with the Museum of Motherhood. Please visit mommuseum.org for more information about the museum, to find out how you can get involved, and to help us strengthen our wonderful community of mothers. Again, that is mommuseum.org. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Bethany.
And I'm Amanda.
And we're sisters.
We are both toddler moms, but we have very different experiences of motherhood.
So, we are on a mission to talk to different moms who all have different experiences.
With a whole lot of laughter, tears, and probably coffee, we embark on a journey to experience motherhood through the eyes of others.
Please join us on this journey as we explore motherhood through funny, loving, and very real memories.
This is Mom Talks with my sister.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good.
I got no complaints. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Work's a little busy right now, but, making it through.
Yeah, work is one of those bittersweet things. You're like, I need this. I don't love this, but I need this.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And my job for sure has its moments where it's like, moments of like great, and then moments of just so stressed that it's like, why am I doing this every day?
Right? I feel like most people can relate. Like, they say that, like, you should get a job that it doesn't feel like you're going to work. Like, love your job so much, like, and you'll never work a day in your life. I don't know who those people are, because I genuinely like my job, like, as much as I can like a job, but I'm still going to work. Like, I feel like I don't know what these people are doing that are like, oh, I don't work a day in my life because I love what I'm doing.
Those are the people who, God bless them, when they were 5, 6 years old, they knew what they wanted to do, and they're doing it. I was never that person.
True.
Yeah.
I was never that person either. I still don't know what I want to do. Like,
Same.
I'm in a very, like, healthy, good job, but I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was talking to my friend Carly, and I said to her, Carly, I am a jack of all trades and a master of none. And she said, I am too. She said, but Beth, have you ever heard that full saying? Did you know there's more to that saying?
No.
So the whole saying goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
I love that. Why don't people say the whole thing?
I don't know, because it makes you feel like...
The whole thing needs to be said.
I agree, because when you hear jack of all trades, you're like, but master of none, you're like, oh, I mean, I'm not great at any one thing. But, like, oftentimes we're better because we know a little bit more about a lot more things.
I feel like I'm having a moment right now. I can relate to this. I like this.
Right? It feels good. Well, so speaking of mastering something, let's hop right into our mom moment of the week. Do you have a master mom moment of the week?
So I do. I feel like most people can probably relate to this too. So we are currently in the middle of potty training. We have an almost 3-year-old, and she's been doing really, really well, like really just crushing it the past week. And she did so well today, no accidents. And then she had an accident, and she was like disappointed in herself. Like, she knew, like, I didn't do what I wanted to do, and I need to get changed. So she went upstairs with my husband to get changed. And so, he's like, it's okay. We had an accident. We just got to make sure you tell us. And, we'll hop right back on, the potty training horse. And so he was obviously a little disappointed that she had had the accident after doing so well. But we've also been working on our colors. And she looked at her array of pajamas, and she's my little girly girl to the core, and she loves her little nightgown dresses, and she pointed at the one she wanted, and she goes, the purple one, and it was purple. So it was like, oh, we had this moment of we had an accident, but oh my God, you got your color right.
Yay. I love that. And I love that she picked the purple one because Aunt Bethany's favorite color is purple.
Aunt Bethany loves purple.
So that's awesome.
How about you?
So mine's a little bit more rough for wear. my son is wild. We all know it. He is just a force to be reckoned with. And he and I, so Amanda and I grew up knowing Uppy, right? Amanda, Uppy for us
The
was a normal
Uppy.
thing. Where our mom would lay on her back and, whether we were sitting on her feet or laying on our stomach on her feet, and she would hold on to our feet and, push us up. It's kind of hard to explain. But so my son and I, we were playing Uppy, and I had him up and I was balancing him, and he was doing great. And he started laughing, and when he was laughing, he lost control of, I guess his muscles, if you will, and he fell forward, flat on my face, full fall.
No. Oh, no.
I immediately, and I went to catch him, and, I, rolled and tried to stop him and, brace his body, but I caught him mostly with my face, and my husband was in the room, and he was like, oh my God, are you okay? Everything's okay. Everyone's okay. My son is laughing. He's laughing, giggling. He's not hurt. And he said, good catch, babe. And I looked and I grabbed my face and I said, I don't think it was as good as you thought it was.
Oh, no.
My nose is just bleeding. I'm wearing a white shirt. My carpet is off-white. I am bleeding hard from my nose. I'm not sure if it was my nose ring that, scraped the inside of my nose. I don't know if it was an actual bleed from the hit. And I mean, at that point though, I think my son realized that something wasn't right, and he stopped laughing, and he looked panicked, and I said, it's okay. And I just I ran to the bathroom, I took care of my nose. Everything's fine and nothing's broken. It was a bloody nose. And the whole time though, he was just at my side, holding on to me, making sure that I was okay, which was really sweet. So
Oh my God, he is such a sweet boy.
Yeah.
And I guess I never thought about that. You think about it as a parent where it's you envision oh my gosh, the first time that my child is injured, bad, right? Not just a scrape or a bruise or, and you put yourself in that shoes, but you never put yourself in your kid's shoes of the first time they see something wrong with you.
Right.
And it's it puts on that, I have to be brave. I have to be brave for my child.
Right. Especially because not only was I hurt, but I was hurt, by him, unintentionally, of course, but by him nonetheless. So I think that gave him a little extra feeling of, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting my own feelings onto him, but I thought that he could tell. And maybe he could. So he'll be 2 soon. So
I'm sure he could. And how's your nose feeling now?
Doing great, actually.
Okay.
I think it was probably more of I don't know. I want to say it might have been more of the nose ring, scraping the inside of the nose, but it was bleeding pretty fierce. But I don't think that there's any permanent damage.
Okay, that's good. Oh man, these mom moments of the week. Oh,
I know. You never know what you're going to get.
Never know what you're going to get. Well, I think this is a good time to explain why we're here and what we're doing. So, this is our Mom Talks with My Sister podcast, and my name is Amanda, and that's my sister Bethany.
Hey!
So what we figured we'd do, since this is our very first official episode, is we're going to introduce each other so that you kind of get to know us and our mom stories. And then along the way, we are going to have some great guests join us every week so that you can get an idea of different types of moms so that maybe you don't feel alone in your experiences as a mom.
I think it's really important for so many moms out there to know that they're not alone, right? Know that there is even if it's a small group of moms that are experiencing the same thing you are, everyone's experience is so different. And connecting mothers of all types and mothers of all backgrounds it's very important to know that we have a community of mothers to support one another.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, it's finding the similarities, it's finding the differences, it's, understanding that what worked for you may not work for somebody else, or what worked for you did work for somebody else. So I think that this is just a great space to just be open-minded. We have some really fun guests that we're going to be interviewing, and hopefully you can just enjoy and listen along with us every week.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. So, Bethany, let's introduce you. You are my younger sister, who is my absolute very best friend in the entire world. And I just can't imagine my life without you being in it literally every single day. We talk every single day, and I love that.
Every day. And what I love even more is looking back onto our life and when we were younger, 10, 15, because there is a 5-year age gap. So we're not super close in age, which made growing up a little tough.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Amanda. I wanted to be just like her. I wanted to have cool friends like her. And I sometimes stole her T-shirts, which made her very upset with me. But now it's like, hey, can I borrow that? Absolutely, take it.
Now we even have the Sisterhood of the Traveling sweater.
Yeah.
It keeps ending up in our clothes of, hey, I don't wear the sweater anymore. Do you want to wear it? Yes. And then I wear it for a couple years, and then I'm like, hey, I don't wear the sweater anymore. Do you want it back? Yes.
It's the white and tan chevron sweater.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And then I will outwear it, and I'm like, I just don't wear it anymore.
Yep. And then I'm like, oh, I can't get rid of this. I wear this. It's such a cute sweater. Why are you getting rid of it?
So great. I know,
So.
we're on round 2 now. But anyways, back to being moms.
Yes.
Since we do talk every day, we obviously know almost everything about each other, but I am interested to see if doing this podcast, if we find out things that we're like, oh, we've never shared that with each other.
That's a really good point. That's something I'd never actually thought about, because I feel like you're the first person I tell everything to. But
Same.
I guess, what does everything consist of? Because some of those small things we may not think of sharing.
Right. Like we were like, oh, this isn't a shareable thing. And then it comes out and you're like, oh my gosh, you never told me this.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that we'll have a few of those moments.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
So let's make this episode all about you. And so I was thinking, I was like, well, we've probably talked about this, but maybe you can share, people say that you're never really ready to have kids. Like, you don't really know what you're going to expect when you have your first one. So maybe you can share how you and your husband kind of brought that topic up.
Oh, so this was a topic actually that has been talked about for years. I was very much, I will never have children. And my husband was very much, I want a small football team. At one point he said 8 to 12, I think. 8 to 12 would be a good number. And I'm like, I don't want one. And he's like, okay, maybe 8 then,
Go to the lower side.
Right. We'll go down to 8. But honestly, it was a conversation we had to have, because although we knew we wanted to be married, we wanted to spend forever together. How do you come to that compromise when one person doesn't want children and one person wants a ton? Like, that's a huge thing in someone's life. So to say I was ready to have kids, I don't know that I necessarily was. For me, with my husband, Ryan, he and I met at a fence of, if we have children, for me, if I have children, my life won't be over. And for him, if we don't have children, my life won't be over. And I think when we got to that center point of whatever will be, that's when we just accepted what would happen, I guess. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was like we were okay one way or another. And then the preparation, once I found out I was pregnant, I was very lucky, because at this point, all of my closest friends and family had already had kids. So, my preparation was turning to them and being like, oh my God, what if? I remember I was setting up my my registry, and I had asked two of my girlfriends, I said, should I buy anti-constipation medicine? And they were like, why? For the baby, I should clarify. And they're like, why? And I was like, well, because on the registry, I can get 10% off. So should I just buy it now? And they're like, no. Like, my friend Crystal, she was like, I don't think I ever used it. And to be honest, I would have never needed it. So I was trying to over prepare. But it's something that I don't think you can ever fully be ready for. You can think you're ready financially, emotionally, materially, however you need to prepare. You can think you are, but until it happens, I don't think you can be. And now that it's happened, I still don't think I'm ready sometimes. I'm like, what am I doing?
I think a lot of people can relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
That's great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what your pregnancy was like, and then maybe what your delivery was like?
Oh, yeah, I could dive into that. So my pregnancy was, for the most part, pretty easy. I don't want to say that I had a difficult pregnancy. I had really bad smell sensitivity. I think that was my biggest complaint. And it was so bizarre because microwaved food, when I was pregnant, had the worst smell. I don't know if anyone else experienced this, but like reheated microwave food, I will never forget. It was the day after Thanksgiving, and I was really sensitive to onion and garlic to begin with, so Thanksgiving was not easy for me. And meat, I didn't eat meat when I was pregnant. I couldn't, the smell of it was, oof. But the day after Thanksgiving, Ryan reheated a plate of food, and I had to physically leave the house because it smelled so horrible. I left. I was like, I can't do this.
Awful.
Yeah. So, but as far as my pregnancy goes, I had really, really low platelet count, which didn't affect my day-to-day, but it did affect my plan for going into labor. With my platelets being as low as they were, it was not guaranteed that I would be able to get an epidural. I know that everybody has their own feelings on epidurals, and for me, it was something I very much wanted. Mm-hmm. The thought of labor scared me quite a bit, to go through that pain without any sort of help. So towards the end there, when my platelets kept getting lower and lower, I had to meet with anesthesiologist and hematologist to kind of make a plan for the epidural. And luckily, I was able to do the epidural. As far as the pregnancy goes, I went a week early. I was induced 1 week early because my blood pressure increased. But other than that, I really had a very uneventful pregnancy. Labor was difficult. I was induced on a Wednesday morning, and I went into a C-section on a Friday night. I had a terrible experience with the Cook's catheter. I think of all of it, that Cook's catheter, which was a manual dilation, was probably the most painful. I think of the whole labor, contractions and pushing and the pressure from pushing. I think the Cook's catheter was by far the worst part of the experience. For me, I can't say it was that way for other women, but for me, for sure.
Sure.
But
yeah, you say even, before your delivery, you're like, oh, I had a pretty uneventful, pregnancy. And I'm over here listening and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Like, like to me, I'm like, that is eventful. Like,
well, and it's funny too, because you and I talked about this a lot during both of our pregnancies. We joked about the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and how they should write one, What You Didn't Expect When You Were Expecting. Yep. I ended up with horrible carpal tunnel in both of my hands. I could barely move my hands. I had really bad fluid retention as well. But it ended up pinching my nerves and causing me to have carpal tunnel. And I got pulled out of work early because of that. So I guess my pregnancy was pretty eventful, I guess.
It was eventful. Newsflash, it was eventful.
Yeah, so I got pulled out of work 6 weeks early because of carpal tunnel. And the doctor told me, my OB told me, she said, I was so scared of this being a permanent thing. And she was like, it's probably not permanent, but I'd never heard before that pregnancy could cause carpal tunnel. Like I was shocked. Sure enough, it is gone. I can feel and move all of my fingers again.
Which is good. But yeah, it's like, I always feel like, any mom that I talk to, and I'm like, okay, tell me the things that you feel like no one prepared you for. And after the fact, when moms are, past their pregnancies, you kind of start to forget a little bit, like, because you move on from it. And, hopefully for most people, some of the things that happen during pregnancy aren't, lasting where they're there forever. But it's crazy when you you don't think about that kind of stuff. I mean, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have a baby. And no, I have carpal tunnel. What? Where did that come from?
Right, absolutely. And I think too, like, it's hard to think beyond, especially when it's your first, because you've never experienced before. You don't know, how painful it's going to be. You hear stories, as a woman, like, this is not going to be easy, but when you go through it and you come out the other side, it's easy for me to say now, like, yeah, I had a very uneventful pregnancy. But once I start retelling that story, I'm like, oh, wait, but maybe it wasn't that uneventful. Maybe I did have more going on than, like, I remember. Because if you remember how awful it was, what are the chances you're going to do it again, right? Like,
slim to none.
Yeah. So I will say, as far as lasting repercussions from my labor, because I did end up having a C-section, and I don't know how common this is. I mean, I'm almost 2 years out, and I am still very painful in my incision area, unfortunately. Yeah. So there are certain pants that I can't wear. And it's weird because, like, when you touch the area lightly, that area of my skin goes numb, like kind of when you're at the dentist and your face is like, you can touch it and you can kind of feel that pressure, but it's like numb, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But deep, like if you push on it at all, or if I'm changing my son's diaper and he kicks it so lovingly, it hurts really bad, like to the point where, like I said, there are certain pants that I can't wear because of it. So, and I know some people don't have that issue at all with C-sections. So, and then there are people who have the epidural issues. I've heard long-lasting, some women experience long-lasting back pain and back spasms from epidurals. And luckily I didn't experience that. So it's a give and a take. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a give and a take. I feel like there's a lot of things that moms just deal with, Mm-hmm. It's not like I walk down the street and I'm like, hey, I have C-section pain still,
Right. No, I think it's part of the reason we're doing this podcast is so, again, we can make some of this stuff, again, things that people just don't talk about. We can just kind of bring it to the forefront and, let others experience what we and other people have experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important.
So how is mom life since your C-section and, actually becoming like a mom? A mom.
A mom of a tiny human. Oy. It's every day is different. Mm-hmm. Every single day. And some days I get to the end of the day and I'm like, oh my God, I just want to sleep. What have I done? I'm exhausted. Why did I choose this? And then I look over at the baby monitor and he's sleeping and he's so precious. And then I'm like, oh, that's why. Yeah. He's perfect and I love him. Like, that's why I did this, And it's just like, I couldn't imagine my life without him. And I think one of the funniest things my husband and I say to each other is, what did we used to do with our time?
Right.
Do you remember what you did with your time before baby?
I took it all for granted.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same. Oh my gosh. I would come home from work and sit on my couch in a silent, clean home, and I'd read a book.
And you're like, and this is heaven.
Yeah, that was heaven. It was. But like now I'm in like a different version of heaven. It's
Yeah.
just a lot more chaotic.
It's a great way of putting it. It's just a different version. And the thing is that, and we're not naive to this. We know that it's going to go so fast, and we're going to blink, and they're going to be out of the house, and then we're going to be like, that went too fast. All the things that I complained about, all the times that I wanted to be sitting on the couch quietly reading a book, they're gone, and I want those times back.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, based on your experiences, based on your husband wanting a football team, do you guys see yourself having more kids? Do you guys want more kids? What's your vision?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. For us, I personally, it's funny, I would like to have another. Ryan does not at this point want to have another.
That's amazing.
But I think one of the other things that's really important to kind of bring to light that I don't think is talked about enough is a big part of our decision making is whether or not we can afford daycare for two.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a really scary thing, and it's a really sad thing to know that we are basing, the size of our family on daycare costs, because daycare is not forever. It is a short time, but it is an incredibly expensive time. And can we afford it? Like, I understand that as they age and they go into different stages of life, those daycare costs are kind of allotted to different things. So the money you never really end up saving daycare money, but it's also not a mandated payment once a week.
Sure.
So that's something that I struggle with a lot personally is I do want to have a second kid, but I don't know if, financially it's a good decision. And that's a hard thing to grapple with.
Yeah, and it's a very real thing. I'm sure there's 100 moms out there that, especially when you come from a family where both parents work, which is essentially the normal, I would say, nowadays, as far as like, it's not uncommon, when both parents work, and it's something that I think a lot of people probably struggle with, and a lot of people who want big families, it's a give and a take, where you're like, is it more important to have the family that we want to have, or is it more important to have the money that we do or don't have, or to scrape by? And I mean, daycare is so expensive, and I know a lot of people out there can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So since we're talking about parents that work, and both parents working, I think that you could share a really interesting take on motherhood that maybe not as many moms can relate to, but something that you experience being a mom and trying to juggle your mom life with this. So why don't you share that?
So I am in the Army Reserves. I am a sergeant, and I have been in the Army for 5 years. So I was actually in the Army before I became a mom. And I really enjoyed the Army. I do have slightly different experience in the reserves than I think a lot of reservists. I actually drill 3 hours away from my home. So once a month, I am gone for the entire weekend. Sometimes that's 2 days, sometimes that's 4 days. Every summer, we have our annual training, which can be 2 to 3 weeks long. So I am gone a lot. I do a lot of additional trainings for my unit. I am pretty involved with my unit. So that is something that is quite different than, a lot of my personal mom friends. I have been leaving him since he was, I think, 5 months old is when I went back to drill. So I had to leave him at a really young age. And I mean, my version of leaving isn't like a deployment or anything. Like I said, it's once a month for a weekend, but it's still quite a bit of time that I am away. And that's hard. It's hard to be away. But also I'm learning that societally it's challenging. My unit is really, really supportive of me as a mother. I've never had any issues on that front, but I get a lot of very strange sentiments from regular day-to-day people in my day-to-day life when they find out that I'm a soldier and that I do leave my son for quite a bit of time.
How does that make you? How does that make you feel? I'm sure you get some people, I guess, that are, thank you for your service, thank you for doing what you're doing. But I'm sure that you probably get some negative reactions from people that are judging. And unfortunately, that's just a part of society of, people judging other people and, without necessarily trying to hurt you or hurt your feelings. But how does that affect you?
So it's tough. I definitely have noticed a huge shift in the interactions that I have where when I was just a female soldier, it was, you're awesome, that's so cool, like, you're such a badass, like, those types of reactions. Now I get a lot of, oh, well, you're not going to stay in after this contract is done, right? I mean, I've been asked that so many times, whereas that was never a question before. But now that I'm a mom, it's almost like I'm expected to give up my career in the Army to just be a mom. And that's bizarre to me. I have obviously many male friends in the Army. And many of those guys who are dads generally don't get the same reaction. And it's kind of strange that as a mom, that's just kind of what I'm expected to do, is stop being in the Army because there's a chance I could get deployed. I had one of my really, really good friends, and he was actually a Marine. So he comes from a military background, and I don't think he meant it in a mean way. But he said, how are you liking the Army? I said, oh my God, I love it. It's awesome. It's such a cool thing. I really love doing it. And he said, I knew you would like it. And then he says, well, how do you like being a mom? And I said, it's great. It's so cool. Like, I am a mom. It's awesome. And then he said, well, which one do you like better?
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, I mean, I didn't know how to answer it. And honestly, like, I could never imagine somebody asking, a dad who serves in the military, what do you like better, being in the military or being a dad? Like, it was just, I didn't even know what to say or how to react. I was just like, they're different. Like, how do I choose? They're different parts of my life,
Right.
So it's definitely interesting, that shift. But as far as myself, being away for extended periods of time is tough. I went on my first 2-week annual training. We were in Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, which is quite a ways away from home. And my son was 1. It was just after his first birthday that I went. So he was, still learning and changing. And when I got home, I just felt like in those 2 weeks I'd missed so much. And that was hard to kind of grapple with as well, because it's like, how am I putting myself and my enjoyment of the Army first? And I think it's that mom guilt, right? Like, moms put so much guilt on themselves. And, obviously I'm putting it on myself as well. So not just the societal guilt that's being put on me, but I am definitely putting my own guilt, on as well. So
I think it's because you care about being a mom, and you care about your son, and you care about your husband, and it's kind of that juggle of, I'm doing what's best, or I think I'm doing what's best. I want to do what's best, but what if I'm not? Type of a mentality.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we struggle with that no matter what the decision is.
Yeah.
we never really know 100% what's best. I
Right.
mean, it's trial and error as parents, right? So, I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of, being in the Army, and I'm hoping that I'm able to set a good example for him, because one of the best things I think you can do for yourself is to be true to yourself. And by being true to yourself, you're teaching your kids that they can be true to who they are, and that they don't have to give up who they are for someone else, even if it is their kid, right? Like,
I love that.
yeah. So, but
Love
yeah,
that.
that's my experience, and I know that there are active duty Army moms out there. There are other reserve moms out there that may have a very different experience than mine. But that's my, that's what I'm noticing, and that's what I'm experiencing as a soldier and mom.
Yeah, which is, like I said, there's definitely moms out there that are in your position or similar positions, but I know that there's a lot, including myself, that don't know what that's like and kind of have a hard time, imagining it or putting, ourselves in your shoes to deal with something like that, because it's tough. Being a mom is hard enough. Being a parent, I mean, let's just be honest. Being a parent who is involved and wants to be a good parent and set a good example, it's tough because, like you said, you don't know what you're doing. It's trial and error. So to add what you have added to your plate, it's tough.
Yeah, I noticed too. I went on a girls' getaway weekend. It was my friend Crystal's birthday. So me and Crystal and Megan, we went on an overnight. Crystal's husband sent us to a spa. It was awesome. We had
Sounds amazing.
it was awesome, and it was great. It was a girls' night out, and Meg has two kiddos, and Crystal has one, and we're sitting in the hotel, and Meg and Crystal were feeling almost guilty that they had left the kids, and they were worried about the kids, and for me it was just another weekend, right? Like, I was like,
Right.
I had at that point, and I didn't realize at this point that separating from him had become so normal to me, whereas to other moms it's not. And like, I felt awful. And then at that point, I was like, oh, am I a bad mom because I can do this so easily? And, we had talked about it that weekend, and they're like, no, but like, we don't leave our kids as often as you have to. And it wasn't even like, they weren't trying to make me feel guilty that I leave him, but like, they were just like, it's a different experience than what we're used to. So because we don't have to do it as much, it's just not as easy for us to do. And, and I think that that's the other thing, is to realize there are different parenting styles, and all different parenting styles come from different experiences. But there's not a right way to do it, and to give yourself just a little wiggle room to not be perfect. We're all humans, and humans aren't perfect. We're just doing the best that we can.
Right. If we were all perfect, it would be boring.
So
It'd
boring.
be so boring.
Or creepy, like Stepford Wives creepy.
Yeah, that's true too. So I feel like you had a lot of like really good advice and everything that you just kind of explained. Is there anything additional that you feel like you, dealing from your experience and your point of view, that you could share with others? I know you already gave a lot because you had a lot of really good advice in what you just said.
Thanks. Yeah, my biggest thing is not to forget yourself, and to be true to yourself, and not to feel bad about who you are. I mean, I am very busy. I do work a full-time job. I am in the reserves, and I am also a part-time student. So, I mean, I am very busy, but I'm doing things that I'm passionate about, and I'm passing that passion on to my son. So even though I may not be there with him every moment, I'm still teaching him lessons. I'm teaching him lessons of, how to maintain a commitment. I'm teaching him lessons on hard work. I'm teaching him lessons on how to be proud of himself for who he is. So don't feel guilty if you can't 100% of the time be there, because we can't all 100% of the time be there, but we're still with them and we're still teaching them.
That's great. That's absolutely great, Bethany.
Thanks.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
So I have this really fun fancy wheel over here, Amanda.
I love fun, fancy wheels.
Do you want to explain what our fun fancy wheel is?
Our fun, fancy wheel is going to be a segment that we are calling Ask a Mom. So with this segment, we are going to spin an actual wheel, and it's going to land on a number, and that number is going to correspond to a question that has been submitted by people that do not currently have kids that want to ask a mom a question that they don't know the answer to. So we're going to spin this wheel. We're going to see what question we get, and we're going to each try to answer this question short form in 30 to 60 seconds. So we don't know what we're going to get, so let's see.
It's a little intimidating because we're not prepared at all for these answers. All right,
So this could go really well or really bad.
I mean, it could be a very serious question. It could be a very funny question. Who knows? Here we
Okay,
go.
let's see what we get.
7. I landed on lucky number 7.
Lucky number 7.
Okay, so question number 7 was submitted by Peggy, age 71, and she does not want children of her own. Her question was, I have been interested in having real information from people who struggled with the idea of having children, of what ultimately moved them to have children versus not.
Peggy, that is a heck of a question. That is a heck of a question. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the reins on this one because I kind of know what my answer is. So what moved me personally, me and my husband, when we decided that we were going to try to get pregnant, we were very happy. We were very feeling fulfilled in our lives. We didn't necessarily feel like we needed a family, but I think the biggest thing that weighed on both of us is we essentially didn't want to reach a point where we couldn't have children anymore, that we didn't want to say, but what if? But what if? And we felt like because you could say what if to anything, either side of having kids or not having kids. But what if we didn't have kids? But what if we did? And I guess what I'm trying to say is the not having kids, what if, was a much bigger weight on us than if we didn't try to have kids. So for us, that was kind of what I think made our decision when we were talking about starting a family.
That's really interesting because that is something you and I have never actually discussed.
We've never discussed that. You're right.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I briefly mentioned this in the beginning of this episode when I talked about how I didn't want kids. I was very adamantly against kids, and Amanda can attest to this. For years and years and years, I was like, I am never having children. And Ryan wanted the football team, so we talked. It did take a lot of talking, and for me especially, I knew. So, quick backstory. Ryan and I met when we were 11 years old. So, we have been in each other's lives much longer than we haven't. So, for me, I knew that it was more important to stay with him and have a child than to lose him and not have a child. I never got any pressure from him, to actually have children. But after years of talking about it, like I said earlier, we kind of got to that fence where I realized that my life would be just as good with a child as it would be without a child. And he felt the same way. He said, if I don't have children, then we're just going to have a lot of really fun, four-wheelers, jet skis, kayaks. We're big outdoors people. So, and we would travel, and he was happy with that as well. So neither one of us were completely giving up what we wanted fundamentally, but we knew that we wanted each other. So when we got to that fence and we decided that, I was more important to him and he was more important to me, we kind of let fate take the wheels from there, and we ended up having a little one.
That's perfect. I think that was a really good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome
I
question.
think that's a
Thank
good
you.
question to start off the podcast too.
Right. I totally agree.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Peggy. Thank you so much for that question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that said, I think it's a good time to let you know that we are reachable if you're interested. If you want to submit your own question for Ask a Mom, we will happily take questions. We are looking specifically for questions from people who are not parents yet. So if you are a parent and you're listening, pass it to your younger sibling who doesn't have children yet. Or I guess in our case, Amanda, that doesn't count because our younger sibling had kids before us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so
Yeah,
you can't
pass
do
it to
that.
pass it to anyone.
But yeah,
Or-
even people that that are questioning if they want kids, or people that are absolutely like, you guys are crazy, kids are crazy, and you guys are crazy if you're having them or wanting them.
Yeah. Or, I mean, Peggy was 71 and she submitted that and she does not have children. So, yeah, pass it to anyone you know. So our email address is momtalkswithmysister@gmail.com. As well, we do have an Instagram account at With My Sister Pod. You can find us there. And if you have any recommendations, if you know a special mom that has an experience that you think they would be willing to share, or if you have a specific experience that you would like to share to see if there's more moms out there that can connect with you, definitely reach out and let us know.
And that'll do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited. Episode 1. This is off the ground and running.
Let's do this.
All right. I will talk to you later. All right. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Yeah, in case you dropped the peanut butter, I was waiting until he went back
Does he
upstairs.
often drop peanut butter?
No, but like where the gate is, and we have like the curtain like that hangs in front of it now. Okay, I'll be honest, I'm the one that drops the peanut butter. So, just in case he was acting like me.
I'm dead.
Please note, the views and opinions shared by our guests are just that, opinions. They do not necessarily reflect our own views on topics discussed. So please keep an open mind while listening, as nothing about our podcast is meant to be hurtful or exclusive. Thanks for joining.